Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bird Notice. Billy here. Leading off, Felix Bautista plays catch and is throwing. Cole Irvin and Ryan McKenna are optioned. John Means is activated, and Heston Kjerstad has his contract selected from AAA. But Ryan, what episode number is this?
This is the 26th episode of Bird Notice, and I have just one player to talk about, a player who will be familiar to most people listening to this. That is John Wesley Boog Powell, who was an Oriole from 1961 to 1974, playing 1,763 of his 2,042 career games with Baltimore. Powell played in the Little League World Series for the Lakeland, Florida team in 1954, and he signed with the O's out of high school for $35,000 as a 6'3", 235-pound 17-year-old. He played for the legendary Earl Weaver at Class B Fox Cities in 1960, hitting .312 with 100 RBIs at the age of 18. The next season, he dominated for my Rochester Red Wings at the age of 19, ending the season with 32 homers, 92 RBIs, and a .321 average before debuting for the Orioles in September. He would never play another game in the minor leagues after that. Powell was a key part of both the 1966 and 70 World Series championship teams, also taking home the AL MVP in 1970. He received MVP votes in 5 other seasons and was an All-Star in each season from 1968 to 1971. He was traded to Cleveland before the 75 season with the approval of his friend Frank Robinson, who was the Indians' manager by then. Powell won the AL Comeback Player of the Year in 1975 and was released at the start of 77, signing with the Dodgers and playing his final 50 games with LA. He hit his first career home run off Hall of Famer Jim Kaat, and he hit 3 home runs in a game on August 10th, 1963, becoming the first Oriole to do so. He finished his career with 339 homers, 1,187 RBIs, and an .822 OPS across 17 years. He ranks in the top 5 amongst Orioles' all-time leaders in categories such as games played, home runs, RBIs, and walks. So that was kind of a long write-up, but because it was the only one, wanted to take a little deep dive into Boog Powell. You got another 26?
There's that other Boog Powell. He played for Tampa recently.
Yeah, there was. I didn't bother looking. I was curious when I typed it into Baseball Reference. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot there was a guy who had the same name. I don't think they're related, and my guess is that they called the younger one Boog kind of as a joke because of the older one.
Yeah, that's my guess too. I used to see him play against the Tides, and I think I Googled him and I found out that they weren't related.
Right. Yeah, and of course I didn't even mention, but there's obviously Boog's Barbecue out on Utah Street at Camden Yards, and he's still, a pretty present member of the Orioles alumni. So that's my Boog Powell report.
He was in the booth earlier this year with Jim Palmer, and it was pretty cool just hearing like 2 old friends talking like no one else was listening.
Right. I do enjoy Jim Palmer because of those stories, and I'm sure Boog has just as many.
Yeah, I got my honorable mention. I got Pete Incaviglia, also known as Inky. He was drafted 8th overall in 1985 by the Montreal Expos. He refused to sign with Montreal and was traded to Texas, and this led to the Pete Incaviglia rule, where a team cannot trade a drafted player until he has been under contract to the club for at least 1 full calendar year. The rule stood for 30 years until it was changed in 2015. He was traded to the Rangers on November 2nd, 1985 for Jim Anderson and Bob Sebra. He'd spent 5 years in Texas before signing with the Phillies for their memorable 1993 season. Inky found himself traded to Baltimore along with Todd Zeile on August 29th, 1996. He appeared in 12 games with the Orioles down the stretch. They'd re-sign him as a free agent in the offseason, but was released mid-season on July 14th, 1997. After Baltimore, he would go on to sign with the Yankees, Tigers, and Astros, appearing in only 20 games for those combined 3 teams. He holds the single season NCAA records for home runs with 48 and RBI with 143. He is currently the manager of the Tri City Valley Cats of the Independent Frontier League, where he has a record of 158 and 127 over 3 seasons.
All right. Yeah, I pulled up Inky while you were talking, and always think of him as a Philly, even though he didn't play there that long. He was on that World Series team in '93 that lost, so that's where my brain went to.
Yeah, I always think of him as a Ranger.
Yeah, that's where he spent most of his career, as you said. Also interesting when you talked about him being traded so quickly, it reminded me of Dansby Swanson. And then you said the rule was changed in 2015, which ironically was the year Swanson was drafted in June. And then in December of that same year, he was traded to Atlanta by Arizona. So the first year they changed that rule, the first overall pick was traded 6 months later, which is pretty interesting.
I think they did that with Trey Turner, but they listed him as a player to be named later. And then once his calendar year or whatever was up, then they could announce he was being traded to. Who traded him? The Padres traded him to the
I think it
Nationals.
was, yeah, I think that's how it went. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's also kind of a, I guess you just have to assume that the other team is going to go through with your handshake agreement, but it is kind of a slick way to get around that rule if you just say player to be named later and agree on who that'll be.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's playing in the other team's minor league system. Just
Right.
I wonder if they
I wonder if the Nats were like telling the Padres like I want him to work on this stuff, you know.
play him at shortstop, not center field or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, interesting.
Or if they
So,
had told him he was being traded, or if he was kept in the dark, you would think his agent would know.
right. Yeah, that's another good point. Maybe they couldn't, but you would think that they would, especially a pretty highly touted prospect like him, huh?
Yeah.
Should we get into the games then?
Yeah, we'll do this Monday. Cardinals at Orioles. Dakota Hudson versus Dean Kramer. But I guess you got a preview. I always jump over your previews.
It's all right. They're not that in depth, but because the O's haven't played the Cardinals this year, we've mentioned on previous episodes that they're uncharacteristically bad this season. The Cards were 63 and 80 before this series, in last place by 3 games in the NL Central. They're just about average offensively, but were 24th in runs allowed with a bullpen ERA that ranked 23rd in the league. Their team leader in home runs was Nolan Gorman, not Arenado or Goldschmidt, but both were close behind. And those three also lead the team in RBIs, but with Arenado at the top. They traded their best starter to the Rangers, Jordan Montgomery, and none of the remaining starters have been very good. And you can also say the same about their bullpen because Jordan Hicks, who was their closer, was traded to Toronto at the deadline. So that is my little Cardinals preview.
Yeah, I gotta say I kind of like them being bad. I hope it lasts a while.
I've always kind of liked the Cardinals, but I mean, the O's didn't make them look that bad this series.
No, yeah, I had a note on that. I guess I might as well get to it now. The with the Cardinals taking 2 or 3, just kind of always having a healthy respect for the Cardinals, even though I don't like them. Like they're obviously a marquee Major League Baseball franchise and have been basically my entire life. It's not like they dropped 2 of 3 to the Rockies or the Angels or the White Sox or Athletics. Like the Cardinals, they're gonna they're gonna play it out. They're not gonna waive a bunch of guys.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see like a consistency metric. Like I guess how much a record swings one way or the other year over year, and by that I just mean I think the Cardinals have been one of the more consistent franchises since like I don't know the '80s maybe. Like they've been solid almost every single year, if not the best. So it is weird to see them being legitimately bad this year.
Yeah, I don't ever remember them being this bad.
All right, you want to get into the first game then on Monday, which was a 11-5 victory for the O's.
Yeah, it started out with Kramer back-to-back two-out walks in the first inning, and then Contreras would score on a single and put the Cardinals up 1-0.
After that, the O's did get on top in the second after Mullins singled, and then Aaron Hicks did the same. The throw from center was too late to get Mullins at third, but then Arenado uncharacteristically threw it into right field, trying to get Hicks at second, and Mullins scored to tie it.
Yeah, then Frazier would walk, and Urias is up with runners on the corners. He's first pitch swinging. He drives in Hicks with a single, and now it's 2-1 Orioles.
Unfortunately, this wasn't a great outing for Dean Kramer because he couldn't hold the lead. In the next half inning, the Cardinals took the lead back. Lars Nootbaar led off with a double and then stole third. Nolan Gorman walked, and then Nolan Arenado drove in Nootbaar with a single to tie it at 2.
Yeah, it was a 29 pitch inning for Dean. Bottom of the fourth, Frazier an RBI single. Now it's 4-3 Orioles.
I lost my spot because I was pulling up. You know what I was doing? I was going to pull up Nolan Arenado and Nolan Gorman to see if either of them were named Nolan Ryan. But I don't need to bother doing that. Yeah, so
I have a story. On Nolan, my sister-in-law was pregnant, and I almost told the story last week, but it's kind of convoluted, so I might as well say it here.
Let's hear it. Why
She
not?
she didn't know what to name her kid, and I was pitching dumb names like George Michael and just saying take a celebrity with a famous
With
celebrity with a
two
first and
first
last
names?
name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we laughed about it, but then later on, she thought of Nolan Ryan and came up with the name Nolan for him. I couldn't convince her to make the middle name Ryan, but
Oh,
that's how
but her
she ended up
son's
naming
name
the
is
kid.
Nolan?
Yeah, because of that conversation.
Well, while you were telling that story, I looked it up. Nolan Arenado is Nolan James, but Nolan Gorman is Nolan Brian Gorman. So he's close.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
that
right, that's my
counts.
stupid name research on opposing teams right now. You mentioned that the O's made it 4-3, correct?
Yeah, so we're in the bottom of the fifth. At least I
All
am in
right.
my notes.
Yeah, so here, Nolan James Arenado singled, and Contreras was out on a fielder's choice, but that ended up being the end of the game for Kramer. His final line was 4 1/3 with 5 earned runs, 7 hits, 4 walks, and 2 strikeouts on 88 pitches. So not his best outing. And then they brought in DL Hall.
Well, this all leads to the Cedric Mullins Grand Slam.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Yeah, that was the bottom of the fifth. And that pretty much sealed the game for the Orioles.
Yeah, so to get to the Grand Slam was Agley and Gunner singles. O'Hearn doubled to make it 5-4. Mountcastle walked, and then Dakota Hudson was pulled for Andre Palante to face Cedric Mullins. Now, this was interesting because Mullins is obviously a lefty, formerly a switch hitter, but stopped batting from the right side to his benefit. And Palante is a righty, and usually you wouldn't bring in a righty to face a lefty in a situation like that. Now, looking at Palante's numbers, lefties have a 685 OPS against him, while righties have a 912 OPS, which is quite a backward split, or a reverse split, I guess they call it. Whereas Mullins himself has a 794 OPS versus righties and a 714 OPS versus lefties. So I guess clearly the Cardinals thought Palante's good numbers against lefties would win out over Mullins' advantage against righties.
Yeah, that wasn't too smart. On the fourth pitch, he sent it over the fence to make it 8-5 Orioles.
The O's then added another in the sixth on a Gunner solo home run to make it 9-5.
And then in the bottom of the eighth to get our 11-5 final, Adley would walk, Gunner would single, Santander would walk. St. Louis makes a pitching change, and Hayes is up with the bases loaded after replacing O'Hearn, and he hit a 2 RBI single.
And speaking of Hayes, he ended the top of the eighth with a nice diving catch in left field. So he had quite an inning there. That was a good one for Austin Hayes and a good one for the O's as they took that victory.
Yeah, I just got 3 stars here. The third star I gave to DL Hall. He became the 20th Orioles pitcher with at least one win this season. He went 1 and 1/3 with 1 hit, 1 strikeout, 27 pitches, and 17 strikes. Second star, Gunnar Henderson, 3 for 5, 3 runs, 1 home run. He joined Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken as the only Orioles rookies in team history with 25 plus doubles and 25 plus home runs. And then Cedric Mullins, if you hit a grand slam, you're probably going to be the first star. 2 for 3, 2 runs scored, 4 RBI, and a walk.
Yeah, solid all around game for the O's there, and that was the last solid game they would have against the Cardinals this series.
I got some more positive notes here. This loss for the Cardinals was their 81st of the season, snapping a 15-year streak of winning seasons. 6 different Orioles had an RBI in this one, and 6 different Orioles scored a run. Everybody reached base. But yeah, it gets dark after this game.
Both teams had 5 hits with runners in scoring position, which I thought was interesting. I mean, obviously the grand slam would be quite an advantage there, but 11-5, and they both had the same amount of hits with runners in scoring position.
That was coming off some high scoring games against the Red Sox. So I guess it makes sense that the bats will go cold after this.
They certainly did. So the next game was a 5-2 loss on Tuesday, and this was John Means' first start since April 13th of 2022.
Yeah, Adam Wainwright has been stuck on 198 wins coming into this one for his last 11 starts.
Yeah, he had been pretty terrible lately and wasn't in this game, but the Cardinals did get out to a quick lead on John Means, where Paul Goldschmidt hit a very high fastball for a solo home run in the first, and I really couldn't even blame Means. That pitch was just way out of the zone, and he was still able to get around on it and hit it out.
Yeah, and then in the top of the second, Means loads the bases with no outs. He limited the Cardinals to 1 run on a sacrifice fly, but now it's 2-0 St. Louis.
And then this is where the legend of Richie Palacios began. He had pinch run for Nolan Bryan Gorman, and Palacios hit a solo home run in the top of the fourth to make it 3-0 Cardinals.
Yeah, that home run was on an 0-2 pitch with 2 outs. So Means almost got out of it, and like you said, a legend was born that day. I guess he's from Towson, Maryland. I think they said on the
He
broadcast.
played there. His baseball reference said he's from New York, but he played in college at Towson, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, bottom of the fourth, the Orioles would load the bases for McCann with 1 out. He would swing on an 0-2 pitch, and he hit into a 6-4-3 double play. It seemed like they were hitting into double plays all week.
Yeah, that was a tough way to, you load the bases with 1 out, and then it's just immediately squashed. But the O's did actually get a run in the bottom of the fifth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, started with an Adley leadoff walk, a Henderson single, Santander RBI single, put the Orioles on the board. Henderson would score on O'Hearn's fielder's choice to make it 3-2. Hayes would double, O'Hearn to third. Now Wainwright is at 4 2/3 with the Cardinals leading 3-2. He needs 1 out to be eligible for the win, and the Cardinals made a decision to let him go for it here. And Frazier's up. He's hitting 302 with 7 home runs and 45 RBI with runners in scoring position, but he'd strike out swinging on a pitch in the dirt.
Yeah, Wainwright's always been known for that big curveball, and I guess that does help you age relatively well, I think, when you don't rely on throwing like 100 miles an hour. But his numbers coming into the start were very bad, and he ended up taking that win, as you said. St. Louis got 2 more in the 7th when Richie Palacios again hit a home run off of the aforementioned Jorge Lopez for his 2nd of the game, and that was also the 3rd of his career in 70 games. So it's not like this guy's a power hitter, but suddenly he has 2 home runs in this game, and it's kind of single-handedly beating the O's.
Yeah, then Cionel Perez would come in and Nootbaar would drive in the inherited runner to give us our 5-2 final.
Final 3 innings, the O's had one hit, which is a Santander double with nobody on base, and obviously nothing came of that. And getting to Wainwright, he finished with 5 innings, 2 earned runs on 7 hits, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. So it's not like he did especially well. You mentioned that he had not won a game in a long time. He'd in fact taken the loss in 7 consecutive starts, and he entered the game with an 8.19 ERA. So he's just not the type of guy you want to see the O's get 2 runs off of. It was not a good outing for their bats.
No, yeah, he's washed. I wonder if you could get him to admit that he should have retired after last season with Molina and Pujols.
It would have been poetic if he did that, but also he's probably making like several $1,000,000, so he might feel fine about that.
Yeah, that is what matters at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, the Orioles were 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position, 10 left on base, 3 double plays with runners in scoring position. I did give out 3 stars. The third star to Palacios, 2 home runs, not bad for a pinch runner. Adam Wainwright, 199th victory, gets the second star. And then John Means, I mean, he pretty much did all you could ask for a guy making his first start coming off Tommy John. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 earned run, 1 strikeout, 75 pitches, 55 strikes. First start since April of 2022.
Yeah, I was kind of conflicted in my own head about that. Like, you want to see him contribute if he can, but at the same time, I don't know how much you want to be sending a guy out in your rotation at this time of year in the division race who hasn't pitched in a year and a half, and you're not, frankly, expecting much. You know what I mean? Like, if he went 5 innings and gave up 2 runs like Wainwright, you're like, oh, that was a good outing. But, like, do you want pitchers like that to be in your rotation when you're trying to win the division? I don't know. I got nothing against him personally. It's just maybe not the right time to be having him start games.
Yeah, the Flaherty debacle kind of makes it like they pretty much have to try anybody out who is a live arm right now. So, but yeah, there's like unrealistic expectations on Means, I think, to come in and throw no hitters every time he starts now when his arm is just starting to heal basically.
Right. No, I agree. I think it would have been a better approach to maybe put him in the bullpen and ramp him up in the offseason to start 24 in the rotation. But it is what it is, and it wasn't really his fault. The O's couldn't hit Adam Wainwright, so a loss is a loss in that game.
I wonder if he benefited from that setback, his arm, because they originally projected him back, I think, in July, and then he had some kind of like a weightlifting setback or something, and something in his back, a strained muscle. I wonder if that
Yeah,
helped his arm out.
I would imagine it did give him extra time to have his elbow get better and stronger. I would think. I don't know. Not a
Yeah,
doctor, but
I would think so
that would
too.
be my brain would think so.
So that brings us to Wednesday. Drew Rom versus Kyle Gibson, the Drew Rom revenge game.
It certainly was. I mean, we talked about the bats going cold against Wainwright, but they were just dormant against Drew Rom in this game.
Gibson's ERA in his last 5 starts coming into this was 8.16. So I was pretty curious to see how he would do, and he did great. It just doesn't matter what you do, the team doesn't score any runs.
Exactly. This is not Gibson's fault at all. He had a great game, and Drew Rom didn't pitch all that long. He only lasted 5 1/3, but the O's did nothing off him. He gave up 2 hits and 3 walks and no runs. So I think Mike Elias had to secretly be rooting against Drew Rom harder than anyone else because he traded him for Flaherty, who obviously has not been great for them. And then Rom comes and just shoves it in their face after he really hadn't been any good until that game.
Yeah, I was just looking it up to see if he's had a start since that Baltimore start. It doesn't look like he has, but yeah, with as bad as Flaherty's been, to see Drew Rom come in and he had a perfect game through like 5 innings. at one point, and he made it look easy. Yeah, you didn't want to see that.
No, he had a 7.79 ERA coming into the game. So they had consecutive games against starters with ERAs at the better ERA was 7.79, and they scored a combined 2 runs off of them. Like, that's, you don't deserve to be winning games when that happens.
Yeah, there's really not a lot here. Mountcastle was injured on a swing and miss. He hasn't played since. He got checked out by the trainers. He stayed in the game for a little while. He was eventually replaced by Urias.
That was interesting to me because I believe they still haven't put him on the IL at all. You would think they'd try to use that roster spot. So
Yeah,
that's kind of
especially
a
with
weird
Tampa.
situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought anything of it if they placed him on IL. I was expecting the worst after that. Even the post game at his locker, he looked pretty concerned.
Yeah, and I guess they said the MRI or whatever they did looked fine, but he hasn't played, and it does seem curious at this point of the year when every game means so much to just have him on the bench and not use him at all if he's not hurt.
Yeah, yeah. It took a Mateo beating out an infield single to break up the no hitter in the fifth. Palacio was a hero again. His home run was the difference.
The only run of the game, his 4th career home run, and his 3rd in 2 games. I mean, these last 2 games where Richie Palacios is, it's either going to be his coming out party or like you'll look back in 10 years like, oh yeah, remember that random Palacios guy who beat the O's in 2 games? It's going to be one or the other, I think.
Yeah, I gave out 3 stars just because I was bored. Kyle Gibson, 6 2/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. He basically had 1 bad pitch out of 104. Gunner for the 2-out triple for giving us that little bit of hope at the end. And Drew Rom, 5 1/3, 2 hits, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. I'll pretty much root for anybody who I saw play for the Tides.
Yeah, he was good. I mean, you got to kind of feel good for him coming in, and you don't want to see the O's lose, but it's probably nice for him to come and perform well against the team that just traded him. And he did say after the fact that he's going to root for the O's, and he's friends with so many other players that he wants them to win it all. So I guess he can still be friends.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still a friend.
The only other note I have is that the bullpens, both teams combined for 6 innings, only allowing 2 hits and 3 walks with 7 strikeouts. So all around a great pitching game, and as you mentioned, just the 1 pitch from Gibson was the difference, unfortunately.
Yeah, so this brings us to Thursday. The Rays are in town. This was on Fox.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising to me, but it was kind of neat as well to get that national exposure on a big network. Quick preview of the Rays, since we've seen them a few times. They were second best in the American League behind the Orioles and 2 games back for the AL East lead. They were 7-3 in their previous 10 and 7-3 in each of their previous 2 sets of 10. So they were 21-9 in their previous 30. And I'm really, frankly, impressed with what they've done lately because Shane McClanahan was a Cy Young candidate early. He hasn't played since early August. And Wander Franco, who has his own issues, hasn't played since August 12th. And they've been extremely good without arguably their 2 best players.
Yeah, I would not have been surprised if they had folded, and it seems like they're tougher than ever somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So the first game was Thursday, and that was a 4-3 loss for the O's.
This was Aaron Savali, who they got at the trade deadline from Cleveland. I wonder if the Orioles were in talks for Savali.
I don't know. I honestly knew nothing about the guy. I kind of knew he existed and played for Cleveland, but that was about it.
I've ha- I've had him on my fantasy team at a couple points throughout the season, and so I was aware of his numbers, and he seems pretty solid. From what I understood at the trade deadline, is the Rays essentially gave up where Heston Kjerstad would rank in the minor league, you know, rankings, and I wasn't interested in doing that. from an Orioles fan perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with that perspective. I did look up Savali the other day after this game and saw that he's from New England and played college baseball at Northeastern University, which is a big hockey rival of BU. But the only other baseball player I know from Northeastern is Adam Ottavino, who has been around as a reliever for a while. But that's my fun fact on Aaron Savali.
Yeah, we got Kyle Bradish on our end. At the top of the second, Mullins made a great catch to end the inning. And then the bottom of the second, O'Hearn hit a 409-foot home run to put the Orioles up 1-0.
And then in the top of the third, Luke Rayleigh, Yandy Diaz, and Brandon Lau all singled to score a run and tie the game. Hicks might have gotten Rayleigh, but he hesitated for some reason, and he just beat the tag at home. I don't really know what that was about.
Yeah, I've been seeing and hearing a lot about Hicks' effort in the outfield. My guess is he's old. He's been banged up this year. We were talking before we were recording. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play next season. The Orioles really don't have room in the outfield for him again. And like, is he really going to want to try and make a team out of spring training with how much money he's made? He'll be 35. The Yankees are paying him. Like, if the Pirates offer him a minor league deal, I don't think he'd take it.
Probably not. I think one thing that was interesting to me, though, is I feel like he's always been known as having a good arm, and that's like one thing you can still show off even when you're old. And this was a good chance to try to gun a guy out at home, and he just hesitated and didn't throw the ball on time. I think the throw was good. It was just late. He could have had him.
Yeah, he's been playing a lot lately.
Right, especially with McKenna being sent down, I think. But I mean, Hicks has been hitting, and that's really why he's in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as we just discussed, they weren't hitting this week for the most part. So anybody who is hitting the ball, you want to definitely have in the lineup.
Yeah, it's been such a solid acquisition for nothing. The Yankees are paying him. There was never anything to lose. Even if he would have joined the Orioles and went 0 for 20 and they just DFA'd him, it still would have been a good move.
Right, it would be like a good immaculate grid player for the future if you
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
forget completely that Hicks had played for the O's. All right, where
Yeah.
were
So
we?
what? The bottom of the fourth. I got the bottom of the fourth. Gunnar hit a home run to make it 3-2.
Yep. And then the O's tied the game in the fifth after Mullins had a perfect bunt single down the line. It was one of those balls where they just let it roll because they were hoping it would go foul, and it just didn't happen. It was great. Hicks walked after that, and then Jordan Westberg had a horrific bunt that was just popped up, but got extremely lucky, and the ball fell, and there was no play to be made. So the bases were loaded with nobody out.
Yeah, I like the way you described that on the Twitter account, where it was the like manifestation of the Alonzo Mourning gif.
Right. At first, you're disgusted, and then it lands, and you see what happened. You're like, okay, I guess that works.
Yeah, you're just coming to terms with just reality, I guess. Like, hey, that actually landed.
Uh-huh. After that,
Yeah, so that should have been an out. Yeah, Frazier RBI ground out to tie it up at 3, and then Adley hits into an inning-ending double play. At that point, they were 2 for 21 with runners in scoring position in the previous 3 games.
yeah, that was a tailor-made double play too. It was like a video from Tom Emanski showing how to turn a double play. It was just perfectly right at the second baseman.
And then the knockout blow would be a solo home run by Rayleigh in the 7th.
Yep, that made it 4-3 Rays, and that was all she wrote. The Rays bullpen was excellent. They went 4 innings, allowed no hits, no walks, with 7 strikeouts, and completely shut down the O's after Savali left the game.
Yeah, they got a win, 2 holds, and a save out of that. Since August 22nd, their ERA was 0.88 with 34 consecutive scoreless innings. Gunnar, Santander, and O'Hearn all struck out in the bottom of the 9th. 12 pitches, 10 strikes.
And that was Fairbanks, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was great. That watching him made me miss Batista, seeing the closer come in and just pump like 101 past guys. And I was like, oh man, we used to have that too.
Yeah, that really hasn't like came back to bite us yet, and I'm worried about that because that's gonna happen eventually. Where uh, Cano tried to blow a game in Boston, but they still came back and won. Eventually, someone's gonna blow the DL Hall against the Angels. Blew the ninth, and they still came back and won.
Jorge Lopez today in the was it the
Yep.
eighth?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think most importantly after this game, the O's division lead was cut to 1.
Yeah, we had Kjerstad's major league debut in this game. He pinch hit for Westberg and struck out swinging.
Yeah, I almost felt bad for him. That was a pretty big spot, and having national TV, huge crowd, like kind of a tough environment to have your first ever at bat.
Yeah, he started Friday, didn't he?
That is a good question. Let's check that out. Yes, he did. He was the DH on Friday, and you know,
All right.
we could talk about Friday now because there's really not much to say about that game.
Yeah, we had Zach Eflin versus the opener Jack Flaherty.
The opener. I don't think Flaherty was actually that bad. Like his numbers look bad, but I thought he pitched decently. What do you think?
Yeah, no, he looked excellent early. And yeah, he just isn't giving any length. Like as for as good as he looked, it all fell apart in the fourth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then on the other side, the Rays, Zach Eflin just completely shut down the O's. I mean, he allowed one hit in the entire game, and as we mentioned, that was Heston Kjerstad.
Yeah, I can't believe Kjerstad hit a home run before Colton Cowser.
Well, Kjerstad swung the bat, so that's step one to hitting a home run.
Yeah, yeah. Colton didn't get the memo that you got to swing the bat.
Yeah. No, that was cool. It was good to see him get that out of the way pretty quickly, and even though they ended up losing 7-1, he can say he created the only run for the O's in that game, so good for him.
Yeah, DL Hall came in the sixth, and he immediately went to a full count on either low or low, and then he eventually allowed a leadoff double, and then Margot would double, and now it's 4-0 Rays. Walls would lay down a bunt, and Hall's throw pulls O'Hearn off the bag. Out comes Brandon Hyde, and in comes Brian Baker for his return. And first pitch, Harold Ramirez just cranks it over the wall, and that's 7-0 Rays. That was Baker's first appearance since July 29th, and DL Hall's line is an ugly 0 innings pitched, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 9 pitches, 6 strikes.
Yeah, that raises the ERA to 5.25, and Baker did allow a home run on the very first pitch he threw, which was atrocious. But I do have to acknowledge that he went 3 innings, and the only earned run he gave up was that guy who hit it off him. The problem was it was a, you know the backbreaker. So even though his overall numbers don't look bad, that was the point where I thought there's zero chance the O's win this game.
Yeah, for sure. It was almost comical. It was like, all right, let's see what Brian Baker's been working on down there. It's just
Right.
first pitch, it left so fast too.
Yeah, and then he was immediately sent down after the game for Bauman, right?
Yeah, that didn't surprise me at all. Once you saw him in that third inning, you're like, well, he was here for a day.
Yeah. And the O's had one other hit the entire game, and that was from Cedric Mullins, and that was a single. And no matter who's pitching, really, if you have a solo home run and a single and one walk the entire game, you're not going to win.
Yeah. The Orioles were 2 for 29, 13 strikeouts and one walk, like you just said. Every batter, even Hayes and Urias, who were pinch hitters, struck out.
Yeah, that's really bad.
I couldn't believe it when I saw it in the box score.
Yeah, and just
I did give out
hearing
3
that
stars though.
Before you do that, just hearing the 2 for 29 just reminds me of like a bad Chris Davis stretch where you're like, oh man, he's in a huge slump. And that was like a game in a nutshell for the O's. 2 for 29.
Yeah, speaking of Chris Davis, he was at this game because my
Yeah,
number
you're
one
right.
star is Adam Jones.
Yeah, we didn't mention that. Well, here, we'll talk about that when you do your 3 stars.
Yeah, I guess I'll start at the bottom. Number 3, I gave Roberto Clemente, the 3rd star. Adam Frazier wore number 21, which was confusing at first. But then I found out any former Pirate and any Latin player could opt to wear number 21 on this day.
Okay.
Number 2, I gave it to Kjerstad.
I was
Yeah,
watching
yeah,
it on
Frazier was a
mute
Pirate.
and I did not know why some guys wore 21 and others didn't. That's interesting.
Yeah, I like the Pirate rule because I'm sure they get, especially someone like Frazier who came up through the minor leagues, they probably just get pumped full of Roberto Clemente stories.
As they should. I mean, he's as sad as his tragic ending was, I do think it's cool that he has exactly 3,000 hits.
Yeah, that's wild. And the right field wall is 21 feet high at PNC Park.
Oh, that's neat. I don't think I knew that. All right.
Have you ever been there?
No, I've only been to the old Three Rivers. I've not been to the new. I've heard it's great. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, number 2, I gave to Heston Kjerstad. He had his first big league hit, which was a home run. He got the ball back. I guess he posed for some pictures and who knows, signed some other balls probably. And then Adam Jones, 11 to 14 seasons in Baltimore, 5 All-Star games, 4 Gold Gloves, 1 Silver Slugger. He's 4th in franchise history in hits, 5th in home runs, RBI and runs. And he had a parade for him basically today.
I thought that was cool. And, for all the shit we've given Angelos, and he deserves it, I thought that was a really well done PR move by the O's. I mean, I think it was cool they brought back a bunch of his teammates and, had the press conference and brought him out on the field with his family. I thought it was really well done, which I don't often say about the Orioles. So props to them.
Yeah, I watched the press conference with Elias. That was fun. Seeing Luke Scott look like Captain Caveman or something, that was funny.
Yeah, he looks like he's surviving off of like deer and mountain spring water or something.
Who else was there? Markakis caught the first pitch. That was Adam Jones's idea, from what I heard. They
Yeah,
wanted Cedric Mullins to do it, and he said, "I want Markakis."
Markakis had the huge sleeve tattoo. I didn't expect that from him. I don't know if he still had that when he was playing with the Braves, but he looks like a biker or something now.
Yeah, I remember his last year was the COVID year where he opted out, and then like halfway through the season, he decided he wanted to play.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you've made like $100 million and don't have to work ever again, you can get whatever tattoos you want, so it doesn't matter.
I noticed the tattoo on his hand was like a lion head. It looked pretty cool.
Yeah, hand tattoos are, I mean, that would hurt. And also, it's one of those things you can never cover it up. So I don't know. I personally wouldn't get a tattoo there, but like I said, Nick Markakis probably doesn't care at all. So
Yeah, if I had his career earnings, I'd probably get some tattoos
right, you
I
could
would
get like the
regret.
Mike Tyson face tattoo, and like I don't got to worry about getting hired or anything. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it for Friday. So now we're on to Saturday.
Yeah, and Saturday was the best game of the week for the O's as far as performance. And I did not watch this because I was at a football game, so I'll let you drive on this one.
Yeah, I watched this. Were you panicking at all heading into this one? I kind of felt like there was going to be some retribution, I guess, for the previous struggles. Like I didn't think that at this point we know how good of a team they are for that to continue that long. Is what I'm trying to say.
I was not panicking. I basically just told myself, like, well, you drop the first two to the Rays, you got to take the next two. Worst case, you get out with a back where you were before the series started as far as the division lead. And Grayson made sure that happened. He did his part and then some.
Yeah, he was great. And I knew the Orioles have kind of roughed up Glass now, at least once this season. I think maybe even another time. But yeah, this one got Gunnar Henderson back in the leadoff spot. the first inning hit in over a week. Adley would then walk. They would both advance on a ball in the dirt. O'Hearn would perfectly place one in left field that a Rosarena can't snag, and we're off. It's 1-0 Orioles. And then in the bottom of the second, Urias would single. Frazier with a 2-out, 2-strike RBI single to make it 2-0. Gunner's first pitch swinging. He hits a home run to make it 4-0 Orioles. This is his 91st run scored. He breaks Cal's Orioles rookie record for run scored, and he ties Eddie Murray's Orioles rookie record with his home run.
Gunner is just so good. Like, they need to give him all the money he wants right now. Like, I do not see a future where Gunner isn't a stud for the next 10 years. I feel like he just has too much going for him to not be a star player for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. It almost seems like he was placed on Earth to play baseball.
I mean, even his body. Look at his body. Mm-hmm. He's what, 6'3", 215 or something. He's really fast. He has a huge arm. Obviously a great hitter. There's nothing to not like about him as a baseball player. I don't know him at all as a person, but he seems likable enough, and I don't know why, if you're the Orioles, who knows? They could be trying to sign him, and he's just not taking the bait right now, but they need to do something to keep him around as long as they can.
Yeah, the time to sign him was before the season. He's a Boris client too, so I'm sure he's being advised not to sign.
Right. He's leading the league in triples. Not that super matters. Yeah. You don't often see a guy who spends half his time at third base leading the league in triples.
Yeah, that's another thing when you were saying, look at his body. When he's running, especially around second, when he gets has just an open field in front of him to run, he runs harder than anybody.
Yeah, and he's passionate too. I really liked when Mullins hit that grand slam the other day. He was on third, and he was super pumped on his way home. And, being from Alabama and with a name like that and, his size and speed, I feel like he could be, the starting quarterback at Alabama if he decided to play football. He's got everything going for him as an athlete. He really does.
Yeah. This takes us to the bottom of the fourth. Hicks, a leadoff single. Frazier would draw a 2-out walk. Henderson and Rutschman then have back-to-back 2-out RBI singles, and it's 6-0 off Tyler Glasnow. So that'd be it for him. Bottom of the fifth, O'Hearn hits a line drive off the shortstop that is ruled an error, but it should have been a base hit. I wonder if they went back and changed it.
According to Hicks, Baseball Mullins, Reference, it's still an error on Baseball Reference.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Kevin Brown was like, "That's ridiculous." He's like, "I'm not changing it in my scorebook," and Ben McDonald laughed. And then James McCann was mic'd up, and he said up in the mic, he was like, "Hey Ben, tell the scorekeeper to change that to a hit."
Right, and that's what we were talking about that a couple weeks ago. Is you would think the Camden Yards scorekeeper would be like, "Oh yeah, let's give him a hit for that," but apparently not.
Yeah. Then Hicks, Mullins, and Urias drive in two more with 3 straight singles. That would give us our 8-0 final. We haven't even talked about Grayson yet. In the bottom of the 8th, he struck out 2 of 3 to finish his start. He was incredible.
Looking at the box score, he didn't even give up a hit until the 4th inning.
Yeah, he was cruising. He looked great. He threw 95 pitches, 72 of them strikes. His ERA is down to 4.53. I almost feel like he should be eligible to win the Comeback Player of the Year award for his difference between his first half and second half.
Yeah, it has been night and day, and I think what I'm most impressed by is the fact that he didn't walk a single batter. Not that he's super wild, but that's really impressive against the second best team in the American League.
Yeah, he had high expectations to live up to, and he obviously didn't in the first half of the season. He's been all that and more since he's returned. There was a scary moment in the 5th where he took a comebacker off his calf, but he just brushed it off.
Yeah, I read about that. I also saw in the highlights, it may have been the 8th inning, his last inning, where he struck out a guy to end the inning and was all pumped and screaming into his glove as he walked off the field. And just like Gunner, I think it's fun to see guys get excited like that.
Yeah, this was a statement start for him. I gave Gunnar the second star. He was back in the leadoff spot, like I said. He was 3 for 5, 2 runs, 3 RBI, 1 home run. His slugging percentage is up to .503. Yeah. The third star I gave to Hayes for the catch where he ran into the wall. I don't even care if he was 0 for 3. Grayson gave him a tip of the cap after the catch.
Yeah, that was a great play. Grayson took his hat completely off. That was funny.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that. I mean, Hayes seems like, I don't know, maybe I wasn't looking for it earlier in the year, but it seems like once a week these days he's making some crazy catch out in left field. I don't know.
Yeah, he's one of those players. I feel like other teams' fans have no idea how like solid a contributor he is.
Right. Yeah, you'd only look at their numbers, and he did make the All-Star team this year, but he hasn't been great offensively since then. But you would look at his numbers and just be like, he seems decent. But yeah, with him and Mullins and left and center, and I don't care who plays right, really. None of them are amazing at it, but you got a good defensive outfield.
We'll see Kjerstad in the outfield. I never really noticed him in the outfield in Norfolk.
I mean, that's probably
He
a
did
good
play a lot
thing.
of first base down there.
If you don't get noticed in the
Right.
outfield, that
Yeah.
means you're probably not making any massive blunders, at least.
I'm sure he DH'd a lot. I did see him at first base a lot, and it sounded like they're not really interested in playing him at first in the majors.
I
At
probably
least during this
wouldn't if
call up.
he's a player that young who hasn't played a ton of first base in the minors. Like as far as overall games, I wouldn't want him being your first baseman at this point in the year on a team that's going to the playoffs.
Yeah. He wasn't in the lineup today, which is Sunday. We finished watching the game right before we were recording, and we got to see the Orioles clinch with their new Take October shirts and hats I'll probably buy.
You do like a specialty hat, don't you? Yeah, this
This
was
one's not different enough. They just have the postseason logo on the side. That might not be enough to do it.
right, and those are the things they give out to like every team that makes the playoffs, right? And they just change the color or the logo or something.
I'll wait for the World Series hat. That's what I'll do.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, so this game today was a 5-4 O's victory, which I think you and I would both agree was pretty improbable because it was 2-1 Rays going into the bottom of the eighth. So we can start from the top, but I kind of chalked this up as a loss by the time it got to that point in the game.
Yeah, when Jorge Lopez gave up the home run, I was like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. But yeah, Dean allowed a solo home run in the first, and you kind of don't even blink anymore when he allows a solo home run. He'd retire the next 10 after that.
Yeah, it is crazy that he often it seems like he often gives up just like a few hits, and one of them, at least one, is a solo homer.
Bottom of the fourth, O'Hearn would double with 1 out. Mullins moves him to third with a ground ball to first, and then Hayes would put the Orioles on the board to tie it up at 1.
Yeah, that was big because Littell for the Rays was equally as effective. He went 4 2/3, allowed 1 earned, and Kramer went 5 innings and allowed 1 earned run. So more or less the same outing from each of them. But there was really nothing going between the fourth and the eighth.
Yeah, Lopez came in and they tried to extend him. He gave up back-to-back home runs. The first one was to Tristan Gray, who made his major league debut the night before. This was his first career start today, and then Bethancourt made it 3-1 Tampa Bay. The eighth and ninth hitters combined for the home runs. That's never good.
Yeah, that was the point where I thought, well, this game is over. But the O's proved me wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong about that.
Yeah, the bottom of the eighth, Fairbanks was in. He's nasty. He struck out the side, but not before Adley could make it 3-2.
Yeah, Agley hit a home run on like 100-mile-an-hour pitch on the inside part of the plate, just turned around on it and gave the O's some life.
Then at the top of the ninth, the Rays would appear to score to make it 4-2. I thought I can't remember who the player was, but I thought he was safe. Even on the replay, I thought he was safe, but the Orioles would get it overturned. So that kept the score at 3-2 and gave the Orioles the second out they needed.
Yeah, that was Josh Lowe at home, by the way. But that brought it to the bottom of the ninth with the O's needing a run to keep the game going, and they were able to do so.
Yeah, Hayes would single. Mateo pinch runs. Frazier's up with 2 outs. He would punch one down the third baseline. Mateo would score easily from first base.
Yeah, and as you and I were watching it together before we recorded, we both pointed out that the Rays had a shift on, and the third baseman was playing essentially where the shortstop would be. So he was nowhere near that ball. And I'm not sure if he definitely would have gotten it because it was pretty close to the line. But once he saw that gaping hole and knowing that Mateo was running on the pitch, there was no way he was not going to score there.
Yeah, it would have at least saved the run, even without getting that out.
Could have, for sure. But that brought us into the 10th inning with the Manfred man. That was Manny Margot. And this is brought me back to what you were saying the other day about the ghost runner and how that goes, because the Rays did not hit a ball past the pitcher and still managed to score Margot in the top of the 10th.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. That felt like, well, they survived once. Tampa Bay's going to win it here. So it's 4-3 going into the bottom of the 11th.
Bottom of the 10th.
Oh, yeah. Westberg would go down swinging. Henderson would pop up, and then Rutschman would hit the single to score Hicks, who was the ghost runner.
Yeah, and that Rutschman ball, I mean, he didn't really hit it that hard. It was just kind of perfectly placed to the right of second base, and nobody could get it. And that allowed Hicks to score easily and keep this one going on to the 11th.
Yeah, then O'Hearn would bunt. That was fun to see.
Yeah, that was a beautiful bunt from a guy that I don't recall seeing bunt this year. I don't know about you.
No, I didn't either. The only guy I remember bunting who was McCann when he took that one to the face earlier this
Right,
season.
that wild bunt. Yeah, and then because of that bunt, Agley, who was the ghost runner on second, was now at third base. And all it took was a Cedric Mullins fly ball to center field, and that allowed Agley to tag up and win the game 5-4.
Yeah, that put the Orioles. They are now 2-44 when trailing after 8 innings. That's exciting, and they got to celebrate their clinching their postseason berth in style. It has to feel much better clinching on a win.
Yeah, so for the listeners, the Rangers had lost before the end of this game, so the O's were guaranteed a postseason berth because of that. But I think it's certainly more exciting to be celebrating that when you actually win a game, especially in dramatic fashion over the division rival. And most importantly, it brought their division lead back to 2 games, which is where they started the series, and frankly was as good as you could have hoped for after dropping those first 2.
And then we hadn't talked about Santander on this episode too much, and this is why. His last 8 games, he's 3 for 34 with 1 RBI and 15 strikeouts. Against Tampa this season, he has 25 strikeouts and 53 at bats.
That's like that O's 2 for 29 box score for a single game. That's how Santander's been himself lately.
So yeah, that wraps up the Tampa series. Who's on tap this week?
So the O's have a very tough series because they're going to Houston for 3, and we all know the Astros are good and a very tough matchup for the O's. Then they stay on the road and travel up to Cleveland for 4 games. So tough series, then Cleveland not so tough, but we saw them drop 2 of 3 to the Cardinals, so can't be sure that anything is going to happen, you know. That's why they play the games, as they say.
Yeah. So anything else? I guess all that's left is the apologies.
The only quick note I have is I got to give a shout out to DL Hall pitching the top of the 11th today. He didn't allow that run to score, and that allowed the O's to win it in the bottom.
Yeah.
Do you want to go
Yeah,
first?
DL Hall. He's fun to watch.
He's
Yeah, I'll
fun
go
to
first. I
watch, but
got
it depends what team you're rooting for sometimes. But either way, it'll be exciting.
right. Yeah, if even if he goes down in flames, like it's going to be spectacular.
Right.
But yeah, I got my fourth recipient of the Bird Notice Award. I found another guy who's played for the Curve and the
Oh,
Tides.
nice. Let's hear it.
Nate McLouth. He played in 133 games for the Curve in 2004 and 47 games for the Tides in 2012. He was a 25th round draft choice by Pittsburgh out of Whitehall High School in Michigan. Spent 6 years with the Pirates, making the 2008 All-Star team. In June of 2009, he was traded to Atlanta for Gorkys Hernandez, Jeff Locke, and Charlie Morton. He returned to the Pirates after 3 disappointing seasons with the Braves, but was DFA'd on May 25th. He would sign a minor league contract with Baltimore on June 5th, 2012, and played well enough in Norfolk to earn a promotion to the big league roster on August 4th. He'd hit 7 home runs with 18 RBI and 12 stolen bases and 236 plate appearances down the stretch. In the ALDS against the Yankees, he was 7 for 22 for a 318 average, 1 home run, and 3 RBI and 2 stolen bases. The Baltimore Sun described McLouth as the only one who brought his bat to the postseason. He parlayed his time with the Orioles into a 2-year, $10.75 million contract with the Nationals. He would appear in only 79 games before tearing his labrum attempting a diving catch. He missed the rest of the season and all the next season. The Nationals declined his team option and he would never play again. So apologies to Nate McLouth.
Yeah, I liked him. I feel like this year's team, I know he was an outfielder, but I'd kind of compare him to like Adam Frazier or Ryan McKenna, like kind of the same style. And
Hicks.
yeah, yeah, a guy you don't expect much from, but becomes a pretty important part of your team.
Yeah, he bombed in that trade to Atlanta. I forgot about that.
Oh, well. Bummer for them.
Yeah.
All right. So apologies to Nate McLouth. I'm going to go with Pat Hentgen, who is better known as a member of the Blue Jays, but he did pitch a few years for the O's. He was drafted by Toronto in the 5th round in 1986. He ended up spending 10 years there, first 9 from 91 to 99, and then a 10th season in 2004 to end his career. He won the Cy Young in 96 with the Blue Jays and was an all-star in 93, 94, and 97. He ended up signing with Baltimore before the 2001 season. He ended up playing 41 games for them, making 35 starts with a 4.26 ERA. He was a member of those Toronto World Series teams. In 1993, he pitched Game 3 of the World Series against Philly and ended up going. Where is it? I'm looking. It was here. All right. He ended up going 6 innings with just 1 earned run allowed, 5 hits, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. So he was a very important part of those Blue Jays teams and an okay pitcher for the O's. Didn't do anything spectacular, but he did spend 3 seasons with them, and I decided to talk about him. It's basically what it boiled down to.
Yeah, I forgot about him. He was a horse from 93 until 2000.
Yeah, pitched a lot of innings. He led the league in innings 2 years in a row, 96 and 97. Won 19 games in 93, won 20 games in 96. He was good.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot all about him until you mentioned him. And then I remembered the Cy Young Award.
Yeah, frankly, if you asked me to name all the 90s Cy Young Award winners, I would have not remembered that.
Yeah, no chance.
So yeah, that's all I've got. How about you? Oh, I do have a question. Our recording is keeping you from watching the Commanders. They are playing the Broncos, so I'm curious, how do you think they'll do today? Unless you're watching it already and you're cheating, I don't know.
No, no, we're gonna watch it as soon as I press stop on this. Um, I hope they do well. They should do well. I hate the Broncos. They're kind of like the Cardinals of football for me. Um, yeah, if they lose the Broncos, I'm going to be very disappointed. But the Commanders have done nothing on offense this season to warrant being excited about them. Uh, if they win, it's going to be low scoring. I don't know. I don't feel good about it, especially on the road in Denver.
True.
To be positive, I'll say they win 21-18.
Okay. Well, we'll see tomorrow. The listeners can see how right or wrong you were.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well,
All right, yeah. So I guess we're gonna wrap it up.
yeah, thanks everyone for listening. If you're still following along with baseball despite the football season going, it is kind of different as an O's fan this year. Still watching baseball at this this point in the season. I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of a weird feeling.
No, definitely. Yeah, it's been fun. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks everyone. Take care.